To quote the great philosopher Forrest Gump, stupid is as stupid does.
Mama says stupid is as stupid does.
Which is the only way I can explain Zohran Mamdani's stupid campaign promise of getting rid of gifted and talented programs for kindergarten in New York City. He calls them inequitable, unfair, a pipeline for segregation. Now, when I listened to all of this and heard this, I thought, you cannot be serious.
You cannot be serious!
Now, before I get into what I think is the real story here, we need to define some terms because people confuse inequity and inequality. Inequity is the unfair, avoidable differences or inequalities that are human behavior, social structures, or systemic injustices. In other words, these are man-made. These are societal. These are artificial. When we're talking about inequity, this is unfairness that we could avoid. This is something that has been set up that puts somebody in a bad spot that they didn't necessarily have to be in. That's what I mean when I say man-made. And you hear a lot about inequity. Inequality, on the other hand, is just a state that you're in, the product of being unequal. Nobody did anything to anybody. It's just that's the way it is. Like if you're on a basketball court and one person's tall and the other person's short, well, there's inequality there. But nobody did anything to anybody else. There's just inequality. Let's talk about what the real story is here about what Mamdani is talking about. You don't solve inequality by dismantling excellence or the programs that develop that excellence. You don't tell kids, look, you're going to have to dumb it down. You're making the rest of the class look bad. We're going to gear this to the least. That's not equity. That's encouraging mediocrity. That's fostering a race to the bottom. Instead of slowing down and failing to challenge our best and brightest, why not focus on programs to stimulate and develop those who might be struggling? There's a thought. Instead of slowing down the fast children, the smarter children, those that are performing well, let's help those that aren't doing quite as well. Let's figure out why they're not doing as well and help them catch up. There's clearly a gap. Not everybody is the same. We're not going to erase that gap, but if we could narrow it, what are some ways to narrow it? Well, we can narrow it by slowing down the leaders or speeding up those that are lagging behind. My vote is we speed up those that are lagging behind. Here are some headlines. Zohran Mamdani's callous school plan steals hope from New York City's brightest kids. Another one, the Washington Post editorial slams Mamdani for holding back gifted students in the name of equity. And let me be clear, he's not the only one suggesting this. Dumbing down students is already a thing in other cities. The Los Angeles United School District is now making it easier for all students to get into honors programs. So let's just lower the standard where everybody can be in an honors program. Think about this when you're getting on an airliner. The best, brightest, most competent are the ones that fly the airplanes. How about we just lower the standards and take the crummiest pilots and they get to fly you and your loved ones just like those that are really good at it. You okay with that? That's what happens when you lower standards. Let's say the fireman. You want to be a fireman? There's a lot that goes into that. You have to understand the science. You have to be physically equipped. How about your house catches on fire and your kids are upstairs and they send you some firemen who didn't quite make the grade until they lowered the standard? They don't understand the science of how fire behaves. They can't quite get upstairs and throw somebody over their shoulder and get them downstairs, but they needed to lower the standard so people didn't feel bad about not being able to make it. You okay with that? I'm not. I'm not okay with it for me or for you. Look at this headline from the Juggernaut, which covers South Asians living in the States, many of whom excel in the classroom. Quote, "Is this the end of gifted America?" Good question. Here's the issue. Nationwide, 6 to 7% of U.S. public school children are in gifted programs, so about 3.3 to 3.4 million students nationwide. Of those, 13% of them are Asian, compared to 8% white, 5% Hispanic, and 4% black students. Asians clearly excel. I don't know why, but they do. So should they be punished by turning gifted programs into everybody gets in the program? How dumb is that?
That's just dumb.
Let's get back to Mamdani and what's happening in New York City. There are 2,500 seats for gifted kindergartners out of 55,000 children. Black and Latino students make up about 65% of New York City schools, but just 33% of gifted and talented kindergarten seats are populated by those minorities. So stat-wise, they are clearly underrepresented. No doubt about it. They are clearly underrepresented. That's why Mamdani wants to do away with these programs. Well, here's a thought. How about working on raising their level of performance instead of lowering the bar so they are cheated out of actually growing their academic skills? His argument makes my point. He says testing 4-year-olds is unreliable. Ability of that age reflects home environment more than innate potential. Exactly. They may be coming from homes that don't value academics, don't value education, didn't have good education on their own. Then you know what? Let's work on the home situation. Let's motivate the parents. Let's provide strong web connections. A lot of these kids can't even get on the internet at home to do homework, to do assignments. Let's help with that. Let's involve parents. Let's get them into the school. Let's make them partners with the teachers. There is an argument that gifted programs reinforce segregation, siphoning resources and attention into elite tracks. Well, not if you close the gap. And how about other shared experiences? This is just academics. You won't have segregation if you focus on art, drama, sports, music, various trades that can be learned. This can happen at many levels. Fairness means raising the floor for everyone, not lifting the ceiling for a few, according to him. No, that's not what you're doing. You're not raising the floor for everyone. You are lowering the floor so everybody can get in. Denying the gifted and talented students a chance to shine? Come on, get real. Excellence should be rewarded whenever, wherever it appears. Denying advanced learners challenge doesn't make others smarter, it just wastes talent. The real story is this. You don't dismantle opportunity because not everyone can reach the top shelf. If the problem is access, then fix access. Test every child. Use multiple measures. You need to open more doors. Don't close the few we already have, because when you eliminate gifted programs, you don't make struggling students succeed. You just drive ambitious families out of that school and down the street into a private school, charter schools. Now, you want to talk about segregation. You want to talk about real division. Now you have driven the really bright, thriving students out of your school. And you, Zohran Mamdani, have become guilty of creating the inequity you say you don't want to see. You're the one that is bringing in the man-made division and creating the inequity, because you are denying those bright students the opportunity to have the seats they need in the gifted and talented programs. You are eroding the opportunity because you are trying to gear things to the least. You're trying to go down the middle of the road. And that in any organization, which you would know if you had ever had a job, which you have not, you would know that is a definite path towards mediocrity. You don't erase inequality, you just erase excellence from the public system. And you don't raise standards, you lower them, all in the name of fairness. Excellence isn't exclusion. It's something to aspire to. You don't punish or dim promise, you promote it. You don't make education fairer by making it flatter. Are you kidding me? There's always going to be a hierarchy. There's always going to be somebody that's better at something than somebody else. If America is afraid of excellence in kindergarten, what does that say about our future? Look, not every child is a prodigy. There's just a human bell curve. I mean, come on. You're going to have most of the students within one standard deviation of the mean. Most of them are going to be right in the middle. 68% of the students are going to fall within one standard deviation of the mean. They're going to be in the norm. That's just the way it spreads out. Obliterating these gifted programs doesn't lift up struggling students. It's just pretending everyone is achieving. This is like the trophy generation. Get on a basketball team down at the YMCA, go 0-13, have a pizza party and get a trophy. That is a false economy. It's not the way the real world works. Real challenge causes students to do better. You don't want to waste talent. You want to really applaud talent. And trust me, we need to do exactly that in America. Because if you look at where we stand in the international market, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, in 2022, U.S. high school students ranked 6th in reading, 10th in science, and 26th in math. We're not number one anymore. Who is? Singapore. Singapore's number one. And 2, 3, and 4 were all occupied by Chinese provinces. Macau, Taipei, Hong Kong. And where was the U.S. overall? 34th. 33 other countries were ahead of the United States of America. And you want to lower standards and take away the motive of developing our best and our brightest? You need to sit down and shut up about this because you don't know what you're talking about. We need to wake up. Excellence isn't elitism, and none of this works without teachers. If we want great, inspired people teaching our children, then we need to pay them better, we need to support them more, and we need to give them the tools to succeed. And let me tell you, this is a subject for another day, but our educational system is on the brink of immediate collapse. And that's going to have to be dealt with. I don't hear you talking about that. We have teachers teaching that aren't trained to teach because it's just next person up. We don't have enough teachers. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and I have a lot to say about that. Look, brilliance is not a problem to fix. It's a resource that we need to nurture, we need to grow, we need to encourage, we need to applaud. If treated otherwise, we don't just lose gifted children. We lose the future innovators, leaders, problem solvers that we all depend on. Don't erode the gifted and talented programs. Put them out there in the bright light and work to close the gap so more students qualify. If the problem is the home support, if the problem is they don't have the resources, then let's focus on pulling them up, not holding the leaders back. And that is the real story. Wherever you're getting the real story, make sure you subscribe and follow. I'll see you tomorrow.